Hi, my name's Tyler Hudson, and I am professional tornado wrangler. Okay, so I'm not an actual tornado wrangler. I'm actually scared to get close to tornadoes. But after this movie, I think I do want to try and get at least a little bit closer. We'll see how that goes. But hello, my name's Tyler Hudson. I am a storm chaser. I've been obsessed with tornadoes since 1996, and I've studied them, and I've chased quite a few of them. And I'm here to give my thoughts on the new national disaster movie, Twisters. So I've seen the film 3 times. I will probably see it more because non-spoilery thoughts for this first part. I'll issue a spoiler emergency, if you will, later on. So if you haven't seen the film, you can enjoy this first part. But so just for a little bit of background, Twister is my favorite movie of all time. As you can see behind me, I have a lot of Twister memorabilia. I have my Joe autograph. I have my picture with Helen Hunt up there. I just have a lot of love for this film, and it's why I am the way that I am. I owe a lot to that film, and I know a lot of others feel the same way. So when Twisters was announced, I think a lot of people were skeptical about it. I like to be at least somewhat optimistic. I was cautiously optimistic, I should say. And, you know, once stuff started coming out about the plot, about what we could expect, I was getting more excited. And then when the trailer dropped in February, which y'all have seen, I was pumped, to say the least. And here we are. It's July. Today is July 21st. And it came out on the 19th officially, but I saw it on the 17th. I've seen it 3 times, like I said. I saw it on the 17th, I saw it on the 19th, and then I saw it this morning. So I have a lot of thoughts. But once again, I'm just going to do some non-spoilery discussions, and then I'll get into the nitty-gritty of all of it. So what's the plot? So I actually wrote my own synopsis here, so I'm going to read it off, so bear with me. I have a lot of notes, so I'll be looking down from time to time. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at my notes. So we're following Kate, who is played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. She goes through a traumatic event that drives her away from chasing when her best friend Hobby, who's played by Anthony Ramos, convinces her to help with a new way to model tornadoes. She comes out to Oklahoma to chase. And along the way, they encounter Tyler Owens and his tornado wranglers as they chase a once-in-a-generational tornado outbreak in Oklahoma. So that's the gist of the plot. And without getting into specifics, or too many specifics, I adore this movie. I love it so freaking much. It's insane. Now, do I think it's better than the 1996 film? No. But I think I can safely and happily put the two next to each other. I think both have weaknesses and strengths, and I think they balance each other out beautifully. So this movie is such an experience. I saw it in IMAX the first night, and I just walked out of the theater stunned. Now, I did have some issues, which honestly at this point, I don't think are that crazy. But we'll talk about them anyway in the spoilery discussion. But I really connected to this film. I've never felt, other than the original Twister, I've never felt so represented, so seen in my life. It was such a euphoric 2 hours for me personally. So I'm just going to jump into some of the things that I loved. First are the characters. They are so three-dimensional, at least the main characters are. They're three-dimensional, they're super relatable, and I cared a lot about what happened to them. So we're following the story of Kate Cooper, who's played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. And she starts off this film very youthful, very energetic, very inspired. And then once tragedy strikes her in a very disturbing way, honestly, her whole demeanor changes. And throughout the film, she's having to find that strength and that courage to come back and be fully present in who she truly is, who she truly needed to be. And following her story was just so beautiful. She is my favorite character in the film. I love them all, but she is my favorite character. And I thought that she grounded the film in such a great way. And really, there were a lot of, I don't want to compare the two too many times, but she had a lot of Joe qualities about her. She was like a Joe Bill mixed together. And I really appreciate that, because Miss Joe Harding here, is probably my favorite fictional female ever. I just, once again, really connected to her story, and Kate is no different. She is absolutely incredible. I loved following her journey throughout this film, and her experiences with these tornadoes only made her stronger. And I hope we get more films in the future. I would love another Twisters film, honestly. And I would love to follow this group of characters, because these are our new established characters. And I really would love to see where they end up in, I think a Dixie Alley movie would be really interesting. I have some thoughts about where the plot could go forward. But I really enjoyed her character. I think she is someone to root for and someone easy to, care about. So no complaints about Kate. And by the time we get to the third act of the film, she really comes full circle. And once again, you're really rooting for her. So sorry, I was getting a little bit ahead of myself by diving into Kate. But I really love her. So I think she's really cool and someone you guys should be rooting for. And we also have Tyler Owens, who runs the Tornado Wranglers, who's the Reed Timmer of this movie, of this universe. He has over almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and he does crazy stuff by driving into tornadoes and driving near tornadoes and just doing random stuff like shooting fireworks up into them. So I really liked his character. He was a lot of fun. And I'll talk more about him in the spoilery discussion. And then to round out the trio, our main trio, we have Javi, who is played by Anthony Ramos, and he runs the Storm Power group, which is our more like technical side of the teams in this movie. And he goes on a little bit of a journey as well. He kind of starts off the same as Kate in the beginning of the film, and he's impacted by the same traumatic event that she had to go through. And so he really wants to reconnect with this friend, and because she's the best of the best, and he wants her help. And I really liked his ideas. For the most part. There's some things which we'll talk about in the spoilery discussion. There's some things about him that really made me mad, but that's the way you're supposed to feel about those things. But his main goal, his main idea is sound, and I really enjoyed that plot line. And then we have the Tornado Wranglers, who are spiritual successors to the original team in the first film. They're quirky, they're kooky, they're all the adjectives for weird and one of a kind. And they're a lot of fun to follow, and I really like their mission too. It was a nice little plot point in the film that they didn't go too much into, but I'm glad that it was established. So yeah, the characters are amazing. I loved most of them. The storm chaser jargon and the meteorology is the best. Okay, so this is the best representation of storm chasing in terms of knowledge that we've ever seen in Hollywood. even more so than the original Twister, which does a good job in some aspects, but they didn't have meteorologists at the beginning of the scripting process like they did here. So they had 2 meteorologists who were the main consultants for the film. There was Kevin Kelleher, I think is how you pronounce his last name, and Sean Waugh. Sean Waugh's from NSSL, the National Severe Storms Laboratory, and Kevin is a retired meteorologist, and I believe he was director of NSSL for a while. Someone fact check me on that. I don't know if that's correct, but I think that is. So they were pretty much involved throughout the entire production of the film. So they were able to, you know, give out helpful tips on site and throughout the scripting process. So we got amazing jargon. We heard words like inflow, cold pool, mesocyclone, updraft, downdraft. All the cool stuff that we love to talk about in the field was in this movie. And it was just so fun. I was sitting next to my mom on the opening night, and she's been with me since the beginning. Her and my dad both took me to spotter training classes since I was 4. That was the first one I ever went to. So they know a lot of jargon. They don't necessarily know what it all means, but they recognize the terms. So we were like really slapping each other going, this is crazy. So yeah, I really loved that. And I loved how all the meteorological processes are explained in this movie for the most part. And granted, who knows if a general audience member is going to understand what they're talking about, but I knew what they were talking about. So that was really cool to see, and all the visualizations are stunning. And I just loved all that. It was just such a cool part of the film. The tornadoes themselves looked so realistic. There were points where I had to think about, did they use actual footage or is this computer generated? Now, some tornadoes look better than others. That's the way it was in the original film. Like, I don't think the wedge EF5 at the end looks the best in a lot of the scenes where we're dealing with it. But all the other tornadoes I think look amazing. I'll get into specifics later on, but for the most part, I think they behaved and just looked perfect. They looked great. And I really loved the execution of survivor's guilt and PTSD and how that plays into a person's life. And I guess I should say, if you do have storm PTSD, this might not be the movie for you, because the opening scene alone, I think that could trigger a person very easily. I'll go into specifics later, but it's probably the most emotional part of the film for me. I've cried every single time that I've seen it. It's just it's hard to watch. So if you do have PTSD, maybe not watch this film unless you have support around you. But that's up to you. If you want to watch it, go for it. But I think if you do have severe storm PTSD, maybe think twice about it. But I really liked the way it was portrayed in this film. It's very different because Joe also deals with PTSD from her tornado event. But the way that Kate and Joe both react to it are very different. And I thought that was a really refreshing and a very interesting take on Kate's character. And then the special effects, again, are just amazing. They had lots of debris, they had wind machines, and it really paid off. It really looks super cool. So those are the things I loved, which is the bulk of the film. And now there are a couple of things that I didn't love, but I've come to accept. So now these are less negative thoughts, but they're more nitpicky. So the first one is the crazy driving, which is mostly on the Wrangler's part. They're driving through fields, they're cutting people off, and granted, there are some crazy yahoos driving around out there. I saw such a crazy event the one day I did chase this year, back in the middle of May. I forgot what day it was. But we were in the Congo line at a stop sign after the Windthorst tornado, and this guy pulled out of the line and was driving the wrong way on the other side of the road and almost had a head-on collision with an oncoming civilian, and he drove into the ditch. It was such a crazy thing to witness, and I can't believe that we're still dealing with people like that. And this film kind of glorifies stuff like that, and I wish it wouldn't. And granted, it's not like, I feel like not a lot of people have common sense, I get that, but I feel like people who do have common sense know not to do what they're doing. But newcomers who want to start chasing after this film might have the wrong idea. I hope not. I hope they get the right training and go ride with someone that's experienced and just do things right. Just do things right. It keeps you safe. It keeps everyone safe. And, you know, just make good choices, essentially. But it's a fun aspect of the film. It's a film. It's not a documentary. I get that. And I fully support that. So the driving is crazy. It's fun, but I don't love what it represented, is basically what I'm getting at. And this, I might be changing my mind on this, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it anyway. But I feel like the length of the tornado scenes were not as long as the ones in Twister. I feel like they were short, or pretty short. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like the tornadoes just went super quick. And we didn't see a lot of them. And that I'm kind of going back on that now because I feel like after my viewing this morning, I kind of feel like they were probably long enough. I don't know what I was expecting, honestly. But I do think that they really are impactful. The ones that we have, even those, the amount of time we have with these tornadoes, they are very impactful. So I don't know, that's going to be someone else's taste. Let me know what you guys thought about that, honestly. Because I'm going back and forth, but I do really love the tornado scenes. I just feel like each one could have been a little bit longer, but that's just me. And then the third act, I do have problems with, and we'll get into specifics later on. And then maybe someone can help me feel better about it. I mean, I feel pretty good about it now. Like, I felt very invested in this morning showing. So I kind of have a more positive outlook on it right now, but I do have issues with it, and I will discuss those. But yeah, this is the end of the non-spoilery discussion. I really love this movie. I need everyone to go watch it. It's the best opening of a disaster movie ever. It's made over $80 million at the box office, which is way above expectations. And I feel like with the momentum going right now, hopefully they'll greenlight another Twisters movie, and we'll get one in a couple of years. So yeah, I love this film. Go watch it and then come back and discuss this movie with me. Hello, spoilery people. Now we can talk specifics. So hopefully you've seen the film if you're sticking around. So we're just going to jump into it because I have a lot to talk about. So we kind of went over Daisy's character, Kate, already, but I just want to reiterate that I really love that she's the anchor of the movie. This is really her story. And again, I found her character super relatable to me. She's extremely studious. I love, and this is one of my favorite scenes, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I really loved how passionate and studious she was in the beginning of the film. I felt very seen and very represented in that way. I'm not studious about a lot of things, but when it comes to tornadoes, I want to know more. I want to know everything. So I really understand her drive and her motivations and wanting to know more. That was just super relatable to me, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. And Joe in the original had that aspect as well. So I really love scientists at work. As you can tell by a lot of my favorite movies like Jurassic Park, The Mummy, even Dante's Peak, which isn't a favorite movie of mine, but I do love it. I just love passionate people doing things that they love. And Kate and Joe are that, you know, they do that. So I really loved her. I already talked a lot about her. But I did appreciate watching her overcome her struggles. And then by the end of the film, she has, you know, come face to face with her opponent. Essentially, she has to face her fears. And I really love the way that was handled for the most part. We'll get into specifics here in a little bit, but I just really loved watching her, and she carried the movie for me. I loved the cast in general, but I think she was a huge highlight. And then we have Tyler Owens, who, like I said earlier, is the Reed Timmer of this movie. He is a cowboy scientist and extreme meteorologist, is what I'm calling him. He did study meteorology, that we come to find out. I think they said what university, but I didn't catch it. So I'm going to assume it was probably OU or something. No, they're from Arkansas, so probably University of Arkansas. So he studied meteorology. He was a bull rider, and he decided to go to college after getting hurt from bull riding. And from that, he takes his knowledge and he does the most with it, which is what Reed Timmer did. Reed Timmer has a PhD in meteorology, and he, you know, has his dominators, and he does all these really fun, cool experiments. So I think having that type of meteorology represented in the movie is really cool, and very realistic to what we see out in the field every spring. So yeah, I really like Tyler's character, and I really love Tyler and Kate's dynamic. It's kind of, if you're not a book person, you're not really going to understand this, but I feel like they're not enemies to lovers per se, but they're like reluctant allies to friends, and then maybe future lovers. We didn't get any romantic full circle at the end, but maybe in the next movie, who knows. But I really loved their dynamic. It was so much fun. He really cared about her. He was very impressed with her, and she misjudged him a lot at the beginning, but she was able to, you know, see a really good and gentle side to him. He's not just the crazy Yahoo all the time. He really does have a heart, and he cares about people. And he cares about their mission to make people aware of tornadoes, but in a fun way, like shooting up the fireworks and whatnot. So Tyler has a lot of heart, and he really did end up really caring about Kate by the end of the film. And I know the feelings were mutual between them, so I really hope that we get more of them in the future, because their dynamic was just something special, and I really enjoyed that. So the tornado wranglers, like I said earlier, they kind of come off as very self-indulgent, and they're just doing the crazy stuff just for views. And then they're selling a lot of merch to not just chasers, but then they set up booths in communities that are hit. And then we come to find out that the money that they make off of the shirts and the merchandise goes to food and supplies for survivors. So I really appreciated that. I thought that was such a really lovely touch to those characters. And I'm glad that we saw Kate reflect on that. Because at the end of the day, for most chasers, we do generally care about what happens to people in these situations. Yes, we love chasing tornadoes. Yes, we're obsessed with them. We love them. But we know what they can do. We understand. And I love that this film really honed in on that, at least for me it did. And I just really appreciated that. I thought that was such a nice little touch to their story, and hopefully it inspires people to think twice about what they're doing in the midst of these tornado disasters. But yeah, I really loved Tyler. I thought he was such a fun character, and Glenn played him in such a southern charming way, because, you know, Glenn Powell is from Texas. So He really had that vibe about him, and he was just perfect in this role. I loved him a lot. And then we have Javi, who's played by Anthony Ramos. I really liked his character, and he did have a really nice arc in the end. He runs Storm PAR, and PAR stands for Phased Array Radar, which I will explain what that is here in a little bit. But so basically their plan is to drop portable phased array radars in front of and around tornadoes to get a 3D scan, which would be the most insane and detailed scan of a tornado ever. And I just love that plot. It reminds me, it ties in a lot to the original plot of Twister. And that's more of his expertise, is in that type of data collection research, because he was the one that wanted to use Dorothy in the beginning of the film to begin with. So I really liked Javi until we found out what him and Storm PAR were up to. They were working with a real estate investor who was coming in after these tornado disasters and mooching off the people that just lost everything. And it was sick and disgusting. And that stuff, unfortunately, does happen in real life. So I'm happy that Kate called him out on his bullshit, and he was able to have a change of heart by the end of the movie. He's in love with Kate, which is sad, but they have really great chemistry. All the characters in this movie have great chemistry together. But I really wanted Kate to end up with Tyler. But Javi is so nice too. I think he'll find another person to bond with. But I'm glad that him and Kate ended up being, partners in Storm PAR, and because Kate was able to be successful in her with her experiment. And so I'm excited to see where that goes. But yeah, I think Javi is a nice character, and just a really fun addition to the film. He felt more like me in terms of like wanting data collection as opposed to like experiments. So yeah, really like Javi a lot. Now I want to talk about my favorite scenes. So I have 5. I love the whole movie, but just some of my standout moments are these top 5. The first being, and I don't necessarily want to say it's a favorite because it's very disturbing and very hard to watch, but the beginning of the film is probably the most emotional part of the movie for me. I've cried every single time while watching it because, I don't know, I don't want to say it triggered me, but like it's scary. It is. It really terrified me. So we start off the film with Kate and her crew, the Tornado Taming Project is what they call themselves. And she's riding with her boyfriend and Javi and her 2 friends. I don't remember all their names. But their goal is to dump, and I'm forgetting the name, but the material that's in diapers that soaks up moisture, they're wanting to get that sucked up into a tornado to suck out the moisture from the tornado. And they have Dorothy at the time to scan the tornado, take data from the tornado to see how that material influences the strength and the structure of the tornado. And things go wrong badly, and they end up having to hide under an overpass from an EF5, which is winds over 200 miles per hour. And it's scary. It was, like I said, it's hard to watch, but I can't look away. So a lot of people die. Everyone but Kate dies in this scenario. And I did but I do like that they included the fact that underpasses are not a safe place to be for tornadoes. That was verbally said by Kate. But they literally have no other option. I'm thinking, if I was in that scenario, would I lay down flat? No, I would probably try to wedge myself under the overpass as well. Even though I know that's not the best place to be, but where else are you going to go? I know that people are going to say to, you probably shouldn't just put yourself in that position anyway, but, well, duh, obviously, but sometimes things happen. We saw that with El Reno in 2013. Things just happen, and you kind of just have to work with what you got. And the only thing they had was an overpass. So they tried to take shelter under there, and it did not end well. One friend was sucked up. Addie, who's the blonde girl, she gets hit by debris, and her boyfriend also gets blown away out from under the overpass. And it's just such an intense moment of the movie, and it really sets the foundation for everything else that you see. It's just very, very powerful. So I thought it was just so well done, and that's probably why it's one of my favorites. Another one is the Javi and Kate backing up scene. So they just deployed a radar, and they're trying to get out of the way of the tornado, but the tornado changes direction on them and starts coming at them, and they're having to back up. And now back up is a fun little, I guess it's a fun little note to the Reed Timmer early days, where he very famously on Storm Chasers, the TV show, was screaming at another car to back up. And I really love the way that the tornado played out in this scene. It's probably my favorite tornado of the movie. It's one of the twins that you see in the twins scene. And there's a lot of rising motion. There's a lot of vortice action going on at the ground. It's just so beautifully done. And then the way that the debris is getting ripped up was also very realistic. The VFX department really did their homework on tornado dynamics, and it really shows. And Javi and Kate are having to back up and try to escape the tornado, but they get grazed by it. And then they get hit by a chicken coop. And Javi has a funny line saying that he killed some chickens, which this is very reminiscent of like partly the "we got cows" scene, and also the scene where Joe and Bill are driving through the ditch. It felt very in theme with those two scenes. I just thought that was such a fun clip. And that is on YouTube, so you could probably go watch it if you want. But I really enjoyed that part of the movie very much. The rodeo, now the setup for the rodeo where the Oklahomans don't know that a tornado's coming at night and no one's tracking it, it's pretty unrealistic, especially if it's a once in a generational tornado outbreak. There wouldn't be a rodeo in the first place, for one. And two, Oklahomans are very weather aware, so they would not be caught off guard like that. But it's a movie. We're going to suspend disbelief. So sure, everyone's caught off guard. But the mass chaos that ensues afterwards from poor management on the rodeo's part, they kind of just told everyone, get out. And there were car accidents. People were getting injured. It was very chaotic. So I think the chaos was done well. And then we get a couple of fun little tornado nods in terms of like tornado culture, I guess I should say. We have tornado sirens, apps on people's phones going off. One of the hotel clerks that Kate and Tyler run into talks about how 9 out of 10 times there's no tornado and a tornado warning, which is very annoying. If you hear a tornado siren, if you hear a tornado warning, take shelter, please. And it was a very nice touch that after she said that, we watch the rodeo get blown away very violently. So that was crazy. And the mean customer at the motel is actually Bill Paxton's son. So it's really cool that we got him in spirit. We had a part of Bill in this movie, which was really nice. So they get killed by getting in the car and trying to outrun the tornado, which is never a good idea it gets caught up in the inflow of the tornado and gets sucked away. And then Kate and Tyler and a mother and daughter are having to take shelter in a pool. Now, this is very interesting because I've never thought about this before, but it is a good place. You're below ground, you're away from the tornadic winds, and I guess they were working on the pool, so they had pipes that they could hang on to for leverage. And I just thought that scene played out really well. And now the only thing you would have to worry about in that scenario is debris fallout, which they did. They had a Coke machine and a horse trailer turn into flying missiles. And so I really also liked that when Tyler was telling the guy he was trying to save to stay down, and that the reason why you want to stay down is because you're trying to get yourself away from the tornado winds that are going on above you. And this guy just did not listen, and it was driving me nuts. So once he tries to stand up, yeah, he gets caught in the inflow and off he goes. So, and another part of that scene I did enjoy was that you really saw Kate being triggered by her PTSD in that moment. She's able to collect herself afterwards, but in that moment, you could see the struggle that she was going through. Like, why am I here? Why did I put myself in this position? What is happening? And so I thought that was very relatable for people who do go through storm PTSD. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed the execution of the radio. And then the destruction afterwards was crazy. I think they said it was an EF4, and I believe it. It looked like EF4 damage. So yeah, I thought the rodeo was well done. Just beautiful. And then one of the quieter scenes is actually another favorite of mine, and it's when Kate goes home after the EF4 event, and she goes through her childhood barn where her and her team and her tornado workshop, essentially, where she worked on her project, and then, you know, it's where they came together to form ideas and work on their experiments and whatnot. And I love seeing her meteorology notebooks. I love seeing how intense their research was. And they actually had a tornado simulator in the film, which is fun because I actually had a tornado simulator for a long time. It's currently packed away. But I just, this is where I felt the most represented in the film. Because like I said earlier, I'm not studious about a lot of things, but I am studious about tornadoes. So if I could have a whole workshop where I could just nerd out about tornadoes, I would. I mean, I kind of have that here behind me, but it's not the same. So yeah, I really loved this quieter moment. And then even later when Tyler comes to visit and he's talking to her about her trauma, and he talks about how the tornadoes aren't rated by size or wind speed. It's based on damage. And he's talks about how damaging that tornado was to Kate's life. I just thought it was a beautiful metaphor. The scriptwriter really outdid himself there. So yeah, that quiet moment was probably one of the highlights of the film for me. And then the credits. I really enjoyed the credits because there's amazing storm footage. I love the cast photos. I love the clips of the cast. But what really got me was there were a few moments of seeing Ted Fujita's drawings and his animations. And that in that 10 seconds, or I guess it's probably more like 20 seconds of credits where we get all this cool stuff, we had so much tornado history in that. And it was so wonderful. All the details in this movie really showed that they cared. And I'm getting choked up thinking about just how much care went into this film. And for the people that do study these things and chase these things for a living or for a hobby, whatever, it's just, I don't know. This was the movie for chasers and tornado enthusiasts. This was the film for us. And that's why I really feel like it did. It really, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about this now. I wasn't going to, but so the last 2 years or so, I went through a storm chasing slump. So I graduated from school in 2022 and with my GIS degree, or geography degree, but I do a lot of GIS work. And I wanted to go into emergency management with that knowledge because I thought my GIS skills would probably help a lot with what with emergency managers and what they can do, in which it can. And I've done some work with emergency management, but not to the extent that I was hoping for. And I'm doing a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily want to do. Like, it's not why I got into the field in the first place. So I went through a slump seeing people I know and really look up to. They're really living their best life. They're able to chase a lot. They're able to have these wonderful opportunities to, whether it's being a part of this movie or being able to get on with science projects going on with NSSL or NOAA or the Center for Severe Weather Research, whatever. And I felt jealous and I felt envious. And so I left for a while, up until this year. And if there's one thing I could take from this film, it's that it reminded me of who I am. It reminded me of why I am the way that I am, you know? I felt reinvigorated after watching the trailer back in February. I just felt the passion coming back, and it's been on high alert pretty much since then. So I love this film for that. It really honed in on the experience of being a chaser and what it means to be a chaser. And so there's just a lot of passion in this film, and I felt it, and it brought me back. So I don't plan on going anywhere. I want to do what I can to help with any part of tornado science, mitigation, preparedness, whatnot, or whatever. So I want to thank this movie for doing that for me. And I'll get into more of that later, but I appreciate this film so much for what it did for not just me, but I know what it did for other people. So anyway, those are my favorite scenes and what it all means for me. So yeah. All right, this next part, I will be talking about Twister Easter eggs from, callbacks to the first film. I know that Entertainment Weekly just came out with an article talking about 10 of them, I think. Some of them are kind of a stretch, in my opinion. Definitely they are callbacks, but I don't think they're anything that most people would notice. Now I will, but like the sunflowers where Kate and Tyler are eating at Kate's childhood home. Sunflowers are a callback to the sunflowers in the first film. Kate's wearing a shirt that the little boy that's coming out of the cellar after the F5 is wearing. Just some little nods like that, but the big ones for me, first being Muskogee State. So Muskogee State College is a fictional school that was established in the first film. That's where Jo was professor at, and her group or students. That's how they got their funding to do the Dorothy project in the first place. And that's carried on to now. All of the students in the beginning of the film are Muskogee students, and that's how they got access to Dorothy and everything. So that was a fun little callback. I love all the Muskogee memorabilia that they had. One of them was wearing a t-shirt. It was so cool. As someone who wishes that was a school that I could go to, that was really cool. Fun little ties to that first movie. And then the Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. So like I said, Dorothy was established in this film as old technology because it is old technology now, but it was state-of-the-art back in 1996. And so using Dorothy to collect data on the intensity of the tornado was a nice little nod to the first film. It was such a smart way to establish the world, because these are the ties that are tying us to that first film, and that the first film happened, that research did happen, and it shows that they did use this type of technology for a while because Hobby knew how to interpret the data. And there were a lot of Wizard of Oz references too, because Stormpar has Wizard, which is their home, like their mobile base, and then they had Lion, Tin Man, and Scarecrow, which were the vehicles that were dropping the radars around the tornado. So that was a really cool addition to the Wizard of Oz motif that's going on in tornado science, especially in this world, in this movie world. Kate's storm sense is also very reminiscent of Bill's. They even have a scene where Kate picks the seeds off of a dandelion and watches them blow in the wind, and that's a carbon copy of the scene where Bill is sensing the storm and where he drops the dirt and everything. So she has those same storm senses that Bill has. And then, of course, the Dodge trucks are such a big callback to the first film because the red Dodge in the original movie is very iconic. And Tyler has a red Dodge in this film as well. So those are just cool little ties to that first movie. And there are more. These are just the really big ones. But it just made me giddy seeing all this stuff in the theater because I'm just like, yep, I see you. I see what y'all are doing. And now we need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the ending of this film, or just the premise of Kate's project, which is to disrupt tornado dynamics is what it's called. I touched on what it was earlier about ingesting the tornado with the stuff that's in diapers. I'm forgetting the name of what that substance is, but it's supposed to suck out the moisture from the tornado. I found out that that wasn't enough, especially when you have something as strong as an EF5 like they did it in the beginning. It just wasn't enough material to make a difference. And that was something that they talked about. And I'm not smart enough to really comment on the science of this, but if you do know, if you're a chemist, if you're a meteorologist, please let me know what your thoughts are about this project below. But they then found out that they wanted to inject sodium iodide, which they use for cloud seeding to precipitate the updraft and make it fall and collapse on itself, essentially, which would disrupt the tornado as well. So you strengthen or you weaken the tornado with the diaper material, but you also decrease the strength of the updraft with the silver iodide by making it collapse. Which that downburst would probably be really insane as well. So, you know, you're comparing apples to oranges here, I guess. But I liked that plot, and I did appreciate it a lot more this third time. But I had such a hard time wrapping my head around it in the first time I watched this film. But honestly, I think my biggest problem is how we got our EF5 at the end. So the tornado, which was a small like helical vortex type of tornado, hits an oil refinery and it gets ingested a lot of heat and expands into a wedge. EF5 is what it's kind of implied to be. That's the main problem I had with the movie, is that in that scene. Because yes, tornadoes need heat. Yes, air rises. So could you hypothetically maybe ingest a lot of heat into a tornado and cause it to strengthen? Yes, probably. I don't know if it would be as dramatic as it's portrayed in the film. I mean, fire whirls happen. There are fire tornadoes in real life, but those are mostly caused by pyrocumulonimbus clouds or storms, which are caused by giant fires with a lot of smoke. And if you have an unstable atmosphere, the particles can condense into clouds and you get a thunderstorm. And if the wind shear and everything there is right, you can get tornadoes out of these pyrocumulonimbus clouds, which has happened quite a few times. They are rare, but they do happen. So this isn't that same thing though. This is a already established tornado hitting an oil refinery and gaining energy from all the heat. So I don't know whether that's true. It's probably plausible, but this is just probably something that people smarter than me need to comment on. So yeah, that's probably my only issue, critique of the film is that part. All right, I've been talking for so long, but I'm gonna wrap this video up. So if you didn't guess, I love this movie. I will see it many, 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 many times until the day I die. I hope we get more Twister movies. I feel like these characters could really bring a lot to the chasing world, you know. So I'm really anxious to see what they can come up with in future stories. Like I said, I felt so represented, and I'm glad that it's getting a lot of good recognition right now. It's the best selling or the best opening of a natural disaster film ever. So that's really exciting, and I want to thank everyone that was a part of this film for bringing it to our lives. I just thought it was so wonderful, and like I said earlier, it's just such an experience. And if you haven't watched the film, I really implore you to go do that, because who knows how long it's going to be in theaters, especially since Deadpool and Wolverine's coming out. So the box office numbers are probably going to drop some. So go see it now while you can, and just have a fun time with it. Don't take it too seriously, because it certainly doesn't take itself too seriously. Like the first film also didn't take itself seriously, or too seriously. How many times am I going to say seriously? But, so I'm going to wrap this up because I'm just blabbing at this point. But let me know what you guys thought about the film. I would love to chat with you guys about it. You can follow me on Instagram. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, please do that. I will be having more Twisters content coming, but that will be slowing down until, I don't know. I have ideas for other tornado content, but I just haven't gotten the motivation to start those things. So let me know what you want to see from this channel. I'm excited to do that new Twisters video that I have the idea for right now. But yeah, I'm glad you guys made it to the end of this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!